This is the 11th episode, and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! And coming right at ya, it's the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy, bringing me more erudite wisdom and clever observations, and not at all weird faffing and odd boulder dash. My name is Minsk.
I'm Friends.
Hey, Friends is here again. Hello,
hey.
Jonathan.
Yep, same joke. Recycling is good. Recycle your jokes. Save the planet.
Well, actually, I won't get too much into that, but John Oliver had some things to say about recycling lately.
Oh, the plastic episode? Yeah, that was a good one.
On the whole, though, yes, recycling's still good. So don't have a existential crisis, anybody. It's still fine, but
Unless that's your thing and you have them all the time.
Yeah, I guess if you're into that somehow, then go right ahead. But please listen to our show first.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, what's been shaking lately? Anything interesting up in games or anything else?
Disco Elysium is almost here. Disco Elysium is almost here.
Ah, yes.
I mean, okay, it's been here already for a year, but the Ultimate Edition, the final cut of Disco Elysium is almost here, with all the voice acting and the new quests and everything. So, I am looking forward to that.
I am too. Maybe we can be all weird and unusual and tease the next episode 5 minutes into our current episode. we actually have our next episode topic pegged down. It's gonna be the quote-unquote ultimate version, whatever you calls it, of Disco Elysium. So look forward to that when you're done with this episode, yeah?
And other than that, I have been playing this new Outriders game that is coming out soon. I got into that demo, and now, as this recording comes out, I am most likely into the full game by that point.
Right, cool. That's the I'm a little hazy on it, but it's some kind of like Destiny Borderlands-y type game.
It's, what was it that a friend of mine called it? It was Gears of Destiny / Borderlands. There's nothing original about it. It's like a Gears of War, Destiny, Borderlands, whatever third-person cover shooter you can think of, they have taken from it. And it's games as service build, and there's really nothing hugely great to say about it at the moment, except that the story is pretty fun.
Okay.
But I'm very early in it, so don't hold me on it yet.
We won't. Certainly can't. No one can really say too much at the moment, of course.
Yep.
So early, but sounds interesting.
Yes, and I've also been into the early access of Everspace 2 for 2 months now. I'm preparing an article on that. That is a bit of a larger project because it is a really big game and they're adding constantly into it.
You'd never guess from the name Everspace that it's going to be big.
Right. And like I got it already like back in February, and I started working on it then. But then after a couple of weeks of playing, they released the patch, which changed a lot of the stuff that I had already made notes on. And they said that they're going to be doing a number of patches, in the next week after that. So I figured that I'm going to give it a couple of months before I actually really start writing about it.
Okay, well, it's a very cool genre, the Everspace games. Those, what the heck are they? The Elite is that old-ass series that I suppose that cribs on. So, and some space shooters as well, Wing Commander as well, right? So,
yeah, it's all kinds of things. I am not 100% sold on all of it. I do like it. I have enjoyed my time with it. But at the same time, I can't help but wish that there was a little bit more to it.
Okay. But, again, we shall await with bated breath to get the more robust review from you later down the line. Myself, I'm really busy, so I have not had time to really do anything current at the moment. I'm always years behind on my backlog of games I want to play, except, of course, what we're talking about today. But apart from that, I've been stuck in the past a little bit.
Well, Stuck in the Past is perfect for today's episode.
Yes, actually, this is a freaking throwback, so let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about Bravely Default 2, the latest Bravely Default game from Square, Square Enix, that is, going back to their roots very hard with the classic JRPGs. This is confusingly the third installment of the series, because after Bravely Default there was one other sequel called Bravely Second, and even more confusingly, the one titled Bravely Second is a direct sequel to the first one with 2 returning party members and the same setting and everything, whereas this one, Bravely Default 2, is in true Final Fantasy fashion a fresh world and all new stuff and, something you can jump into without any knowledge of the previous 2 installments. So, good that in addition to all the other classic trappings, they're sticking to the confusing numbering of their sequels, Square. Kudos to that.
And confusing name, because I have absolutely no idea why it's called Bravely Default, and there's absolutely nothing to do with loans or your credit rating.
Unless you play the gambler class who uses money to attack in the game, in which case, yes, then you'll really be in a world of financial trouble, but I don't recommend that class.
Indeed.
No, I feel like Bravely Default is a sly wink at the fact that what a classic 16-bit style JRPG this is. Like, they're basically being a default JRPG, and they're not shy about it in any sense. That's kind of how I read the title.
I guess so, yeah. I'm still kind of puzzled by it, and I've tried to look up and read all kinds of explanations, but even the developers seem to be liking it to be pretty vague.
I guess so. I mean, Final Fantasy is pretty... That doesn't really tell you anything about the game, really.
No, but that was at least, it was named that because the company was going into bankruptcy, and they're like, well, let's call it something ironic. Because, this is the final... The whole, last straw would not have sold as well as Final Fantasy.
The last straw.
Yes.
Coming to NESs worldwide.
Yeah, my favorite is Last Straw 7.
Oh, yeah. The increasingly ironically titled.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, well, but of course in the, the game, there isn't very many Final Fantasies going on in the actual game itself, so to speak.
Right.
But, no.
The closest thing I could find is that apparently Tomoya Asano, who is, I think, one of the producers of the game, said that Bravely Default means that it is to have the courage and to renounce the promises and responsibilities that are expected of you, which I guess makes sense.
Oh, well, okay, I guess that happens in the game. I don't feel like I've hit that point yet. But
no, not really. It's just like basically like a Final Fantasy title. I guess that it just means whatever you want it to be.
It sounds exciting. Yes. Mysterious. Well, I think before we really jump in this one I really have to call out the fact that we're basing this review on a playthroughs that are, I don't think we're even halfway done with the game, either of us. And we've done reviews like that in the past, and I think in this one especially I need to call it out because the first Bravely Default is infamous for how terrible the final act of it is compared to the rest of the game. So we don't know if there's a twist for the worse in this one. I'm not that deep in the game, and I can't make any promises on that front. I'm solely reviewing this on how the first, I think I'm 20 hours in, have been. If you have a problem with us making a review on that, well, we shake hands. Thanks for listening this far. You'll have to go look up a more knowledgeable review from somewhere else, but I think I'm already qualified to talk for a podcast's worth about this game at this point. But be aware that there might be some twist to the end. Maybe.
I mean, we're 2 white guys having a podcast. What kind of qualifications have we ever needed for anything?
Exactly. This basically was like, hey, why don't we do a podcast? Was the whole premise of this thing. So,
Surely the world needs more of these kind of opinions. Hot takes on video games.
Yes, indeed. But let's get in on that. So, also again, about the previous game, I want to say to people who have played the first game, to save you some time, this is basically Bravely Default. There's the same beats are in there. The gameplay is near identical. It's looks prettier, but otherwise it's the same game. If you loved Bravely Default, you should play this game. Okay, you're done. Thanks for listening this week. But the rest of you folks, let's talk about the actual game. Let's finally get on that. Yes. Bravely Default, it is or two, of course, and one, again. They are JRPGs, Japanese role-playing games. They heavily crib on the Super Nintendo era of Final Fantasy, as we've alluded to. And also the PlayStation era to some extent. They are turn-based JRPGs, class-based. This one uses the job system made famous by Final Fantasies 3 and 5, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the gameplay section. But plot-wise, it's your standard Final Fantasy fare, and again, but it's fun. I think it's really good. It's a simple, but excels in its simple plot. I don't know what you feel like.
It stinks.
Oh no!
No, I just wanted to see how many people who haven't already tuned out are going to throw their phones away.
That crosses my threshold.
Yeah, it's like, I cannot take this anymore. No, I agree. It's such a throwback. It's such a retro experience that I was at times intensely infuriated by it. Like, I feel that just because you're trying to do something in the old-fashioned way, there's just things that they could have made life a little bit easier.
Sure, I can feel that. I mean, just before the gameplay, let's just go over the plot. We are introduced to a fantasy world affected by the power of 4 elemental crystals that govern the balance of nature or whatever, and this balance is currently in turmoil by some kind of evil organization coveting these crystals. And as it turns out, 4 individuals are united by chance or perhaps fate to some extent to become the crusading heroes of light who have to save the crystals from their abuse. So basically I just described like half of the early Final Fantasies right there. I could have easily just slapped this description on like 3 through 5 at least, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for me, this was really like the plot itself is kind of it's kind of all over the place because it's so general and so without joking, it's such a default setting for these kind of JRPGs.
See, now you're feeling the title. You're feeling it.
Yeah, but what I did like was that in my headcanon, this is an unofficial Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure because it's the main character, Seth, looks kind of like Keanu Reeves as Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And the whole thing takes place in a kingdom of Excellent. So every time they said the name, I was like, excellent! And it just made this game a lot more fun to play because it was such a great coincidence that I really hope that somebody at Square Enix is like, I'm going to put this in and see if anybody notices.
Yeah, I wonder. I didn't listen to the Japanese track. I want to check if the names are the same in Japanese or if someone at the localization was like, what if we called it Excellent?
That's true, yes.
Yeah, but okay, plot is by the numbers. You definitely could say that, but I like the character work here a lot. I think they're all compelling, the 4 characters in this game, and I really like the cast of villains as well, who you bump into a lot of. There's a lot of fun variety among them.
Oh yeah, character work is really good in this. It's kind of the opposite of what it was in last year's Octopath Traveler, where it was so that the story itself was kind of fun, but the characters were so utterly boring that they didn't do anything. Whereas here in this, the story itself is kind of but the character work throughout is really solid.
Well, I think Octopath, I haven't played it yet, and I've been a little bit hesitating, because just like Bravely Default, the first one, I've heard that the finale of Octopath is a real drag, so I've been like, But I understand in Octopath, it's like you play through individual stories of these 8 characters, and the other characters are there, but they don't really contribute very much.
Yeah, they're all kind of like singular narrative storylines, and it's a kind of a pain in the ass. I like this a lot better, where all of them are split into chapters that are like 5 to 8 hours in length, and they all have their own certain type of closure to them, which is great because it's good that if you play it and you come back later, you don't get too horribly lost in what you were doing.
Yes, absolutely, and it seems to, again, with the couple of chapters I've played, it seems to do a good job of you have 4 main characters, Seth, Gloria, Elvis, and Adele, and it seems to do a good job of kind of being like, well, this part of the narrative is more about the tribulations of, let's say Gloria in the desert, about her relations with the local noble leader there, and kind of how that goes. Mm-hmm. And now I've started chapter 2, where you go to Elvis's homeland of Wiswald, and I'm not deep in that, but it's clear it's going to be kind of about Elvis and his feelings of what's going on in his homeland. So that's really good. That's the kind of storytelling I like in a classic RPG like this.
Oh yeah, and like we mentioned, I'm also in chapter 2 right now, and Elvis is by far my favorite character of the group.
Oh, he's fantastic! If only alone for his voice is so delightful to listen to.
Yeah, and he is a fun and well written type, and I really can't wait to see more of where it goes with his storyline.
Yeah, just for people's reference, he has a very thick Scottish accent.
Oh, aye.
But he's not like a belligerent guy. He is into his drinks. He's always talking about getting a drink, but he doesn't turn into a groundskeeper Willie, just antagonizing everybody all the time. He's actually a really fun guy. It's very neat.
Yeah, but it's funnier to think of in the battle when you throw potions at him that he's screaming, "Grease me up, woman!"
I need my mana potions! Do it! Yeah, no, he's good. And honestly, the main character, Seth, is kind of, so far, the least interesting, because he has to be this is your stock main lead guy. Mm-hmm. Most blank slatiest. But he's fine. He's a serviceable character.
Yeah, he's not the worst that Square Enix has made.
No, definitely not. He's okay. Yeah, and like I said, the villains are super fun. All the asterisk guys in chapter 1, I like them for different reasons of villainy. There was one super sympathetic kind of anti-villain who I felt really bad for, and then there was a couple of really heinous guys, and then my absolute favorite, the Bard, who is you love to hate him because he's so obnoxious villain.
Mm-hmm. The one who really loves being a villain.
Yeah, and also he's so he's so full of himself until he's in danger, and then he's just a craven, and he's not even ashamed of how a craven a coward he is, and it's really. It's a character type, but it always amuses me, that kind of goofball.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's jump into the gameplay here. If you've played 16-bit JRPGs, you have some idea of what's going on here. It's turn-based combat, class-based. Do you want to go off about the difficulty right away?
No, we'll get to the difficulty eventually, because oh boy.
Yeah, we might have something to say about that, but okay, so the one thing that differentiates this from older games of its sort is the Bravely Default system, with the titular Bravely Default. Basically, when you defend in the game, you get a Brave point that you can expend for extra actions. Basically, you pass a turn defending, and then you get 1 point to spend on maybe two things. Enemies are going to be using this system as well. And also it's very cool. You can also go into the negatives. Basically, if you feel I need to get moves out right now, you can actually spend points into the negatives. But then your character just has to sit there to make up for the extra turns until the meter is back to 0. It doesn't seem that engaging at first, because I'm just well, I'll just spend my moves without worrying too much about that. But when your enemies are doing the same thing and you start to like have to worry about kind of when you time your attacks on the enemy, and then you notice you start defaulting more often because you're not, what else should I do? And then like options open up with all these extra actions that are racking up. I think it's a very elegant system. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good as well. And this is probably just me getting to the point where I just don't have the time. I felt like at times it was a little too elegant in the same way that it does require quite a bit of attention. It does require quite a bit of trying things out to see what they work, and also kind of, building your party in a certain way that one size really doesn't fit all. And I'm a little too used to it from where the action RPG genre has taken it, like even where Final Fantasy VII Remake took it, which is very much a lot easier in terms of building your stats.
I totally get that. Yeah, it's this is a little bit more demanding. There was a point in the first Bravely Default where basic fights I could beat just by having everybody brave to the maximum immediately and just blitz the enemy. But I got a game over very early in this one, so even regular fights I have to like pace myself a little bit. And that can be a bit of a problem. It's the weird like kind of contradiction in RPGs like this, is that you kind of want there to be, because it's high adventure and fighting and action, so you want there to be fights, but they can't last too long, or that just drags the whole game down if it's just fights taking forever. So I get what you're getting at on that front.
Yeah, and it's again, this is about as subjective as it can get with games like this. These are made for a very specific kind of audience, and I realize I'm already in the minority because I'm the one who also complained about Neo being too difficult.
Yeah, I heard you got some choice words about that.
Yeah, but like with this, I do feel that there are moments where some of it is made with the kind of love and attention and detail to how it used to be 20, 30 years ago. But sometimes that kind of love and reverence to something isn't always the best possible thing to have, unless you're looking to change it some way.
Okay, yeah, I get that. They certainly come up with other properties leaning on nostalgia, so I can certainly understand that. I'm kind of a mark for exactly this kind of gameplay, so I'm much more amenable to this so far. It's kind of I'm the audience you mentioned a second ago. I could say that right now.
And I did notice when I was playing it over the last. Has it already been a month? About 3 weeks that we've been playing it now?
About, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, when I started the first week, I was very much, like, against it. I was like, I can't play this. This is awful. But then I kept coming back to it, and I noticed that my attitude towards it changed and became much more lenient as time went by. So I do fully see that if I would play more of this type of game, like if I went and jumped into other similar games like this, that I would find probably in me again the capability to go back and enjoy this much more fully. So it's not scripture right now.
Right, I feel that exactly. Well, I wonder if the thing opening up for you might have been part of the job system opening up a little bit more as you played further into the game. So just so people who might be wondering, in RPG parlance, a job system refers to a RPG where your characters are free to swap classes at any time, and you're basically like leveling up your class irrespective of your character, like separately, to like unlock new moves in that specific class. And once you start getting more classes, traditionally, or jobs again in this parlance as it is, you start to be able to mix together the abilities. Like you're able to equip abilities from one job that you've been working on while running a second one, and sometimes you're able to equip passive abilities from even other ones that you've worked on, and that kind of adds to the depth of it, because of course, it turns out that some jobs synergize way better with each other than some other jobs, and it becomes a game in itself, just kind of playing around and figuring out what you want your job setup to be. So I'm not sure. Have you played a lot of games with a system like this?
I honestly can't remember anything past like Final Fantasy 5? 3?
Yeah.
2? Like just one of the old ones, the really old ones, which had a job system. Other than that, I can't really remember anything else.
There isn't a lot in this genre, honestly, this subgenre. You named the two big ones, Final Fantasy 3 and 5. 5 is kind of considered the flagship.
Yeah, I remember Octopath Traveler had something like similar to it, like something akin to it, like that one of the characters could like it wasn't so much of a job system, but it could like learn class skills from others, and that was probably the closest I've seen in a long time.
I think there was, something like that there, what I've heard.
Yeah, but it's really such a niche and something that I haven't paid attention to. So no, I cannot remember anything else.
Okay, well, so you're a bit of like a newbie to this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Not saying I'm like deep into this either, because I haven't played too many of these either. But like I have played Final Fantasy V, so I have quite a bit of that. So I have some experience with these kind of games. Did you find it engaging at all to work with the job system?
Down the line, I did. Like in the beginning, I found it really restrictive. And I really didn't like it in the first couple of days that I played. But like you mentioned, the further I got into the game, the better it was because it opened up more. And once you got to the point where you're actually mixing and matching job systems and skill systems, and you're like seeing which ones work with one another the best, I think that gave me the kind of freedom that I started to enjoy it more. And I think that could be what you meant with the whole thing, that's why it started feeling like a better game down the line.
Yeah, that's just me spitballing, because I didn't hate the beginning, but at the beginning you just have 4 classes that, and of course you have your 5th like freelancer class, which is like the basic vanilla, no special like bells and whistles class. That's when you start with, but you just have kind of like you have 4 roles and not a lot to play with those. But then you start getting more jobs than you have characters, which means it's time to start pairing them up, and it becomes really cool. Like the one I liked for the moment, I was like, ooh, this works really well, is Monk plus Berserker, because they both have abilities that increase your physical attack stat. So the Monk can like, I think it's called like Invigorate. The Monk channels their ki to increase their physical attack. And then the Berserker can go Berserk, which again, I think adds 50% more damage to attacks. So I was like, hey, that's really cool. I just stack those two, and Adele becomes this monster that just starts punching everything in sight. And that's fun. That's fun to figure stuff like that out.
Yeah, and I went, before we started recording this episode, I went and looked at a bunch of gameplay videos from people who are much more into this, who've already completed the game a couple of times, and who have, played with the system so much that they've started to break it down.
Yeah.
And you can see these people who have it figured out. They have builds for characters and mixes and skills and stuff that I would not have even considered. And it's really funny to see like places where I struggled, like really struggled in, and they just kind of like mop the floor with everything. It doesn't even like, even the people who are playing it are going like, well, this is really boring now because it's so easy. And I have a lot of respect for people who have the tenacity and the capability to just sit down and figure that stuff out in a way like any kind of a strategy game.
Absolutely. I honestly, as much as I love this, I'm not really smart enough to do that too much. I'm more of just like, well, what comes as a fun pair? Like what looks fun to me to pair these things up, or like what works in this situation for me, and it usually turns out okay.
Yeah.
I do want to highlight the hidden benefit of the jobs system, because this is amazing. I'm the kind of guy who does love, even if I'm not good at it, I love tinkering with the job thing and kind of working out how to, figuring out what kind of fun combos to get out of that. But there's a couple of hidden benefits to the job system as well that I don't think a lot of people think about. Well, one I think people think about, of course, it's fun to play, fashion fantasy. Everyone gets fun costumes. That's always fun. Like, did you at all think about, ooh, that guy looks cool in that costume when you were picking them?
Honestly, that's probably my number one thing when I was looking at them. It's which one looks coolest.
It's so fun, I'm trying to remember which, it's too bad because I really didn't like the gambler job at all, but Gloria gets this sick top hat in her gambler costume. I was like, I kind of want that.
Yeah. I think this comes to, you mentioned that you like the tinkering and you like the figuring out the stuff. I am the same way, but for completely useless vanity items. I like making my characters look specifically the way I want them to look, and if I'm playing any kind of an adventure RPG or anything that lets me make my character, I spend an inordinate amount of time putting together a character who I really like in terms of their visual aspects. So in this, it was kind of funny because I would sometimes pick really terrible classes and jobs for these people because I was just like, but they look so cool. Look at them, they're so cool. And
exactly.
And then just get my ass handed to me.
Yeah, but that's how it goes sometimes. It's the same in Dark Souls when you dress up in really suboptimal armor, but damn, you look fly.
Yeah, you look awesome, and then the first knight comes your way and just pummels you and throws you off the parapets.
You tried to fight me in a Pope's robes.
Yeah.
Let me show you how bad an idea that is.
Stab.
Yeah, exactly. So job classes, or the job system affords the JRPG genre a little bit of that visual customization that you don't really get in normally. You can't really affect what everybody looks like in any of the 3 PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies. I mean, if they're dressed weirdly, differently, it'll be for story reasons only. Mm-hmm. It'll usually go away. But that's one aspect. But the real one, the one that I'm always this is why job systems are cool. It condenses the amount of characters you have, which leads to better characterization. We started talking about how well the characters work. And that's because you don't need a huge cast of party members when everyone can swap around classes freely. And that allows the writing to focus on this smaller cast a lot more.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Because, with Octopath Traveler, to bring in as an example, there was a huge cast, and none of them really seem to work.
Yeah, exactly. Or, far be it from me to speak ill of Final Fantasy IX, which is a fantastic game, but one of the criticisms levied at it, and I think fairly, is that the cast of Final Fantasy IX gets really uneven treatment in the plot. If you like Vivi like I do, you're in luck because he's super central to the plot. Mm-hmm. And so is Garnet and Zidane to some extent. But then I think outside of Vivi, my favorite character would be Freya, except that once you're done with the whole Freya's homeland part of Final Fantasy IX, which happens super early when you get Freya in the party.
That's in the first disc, isn't it?
Yes, half is in the first disc, half is at the beginning of the second disc. Mm-hmm. And once you're done with that, I can't remember what Freya does in the plot.
She reiterates plot points and admonishes Zidane.
Yeah, that's about it. The only thing I remember is her epilogue conclusion at the very end of the game. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. It's Freya and Steiner were actually one of my favorite characters in the thing. Because Steiner had such a great part in terms of where he started off as just blindly devout, almost fascist kind of, the system is never wrong kind of guy. And him breaking out of that and seeing the bigger picture was a great story point. But he gets forgotten about halfway through the first disc. And even though he travels alone with Garnet, for a good portion of the story, he doesn't get a lot to do either.
He has like two big spots. He has when he finally trusts Zidane with Garnet. That's like his big character switch.
Yeah.
And then when he's fighting alongside Beatrice.
Yes.
They have the big fight scene. And yeah, again, not a whole lot after that.
No, they seem to try and bring these conclusions really quickly so that we would then focus on Zidane and what was the Kefka? No, Kefka was in number 6. Kuja. So the discount Kefka.
Exactly.
Kuja with that, and I just never found their story to be that interesting in part 9.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I feel this has been the problem with Final Fantasies for quite a while. And I think it's just because they really do the whole everything, including the kitchen sink approach. Right. Let's throw everything in there. Let's put, this story, these characters, these side quests, and who cares, how much time or space we have, just as long as it's in there.
Yeah, I mean, freaking 6, forget 9. Final Fantasy 6 has, I think, 14 characters in total.
Right.
And, okay, so some of them might not be, they don't need to be relevant to the plot, but, there's no denying that freaking Mog or Go-Go are not as relevant to everything as, the other half of the cast.
Right, and it's also in part 7, even though part 7 is my one of my all-time favorite games. Let's face it, Vincent Valentine doesn't really have that much of a part to play in the story, even though he's a fan favorite.
Yeah. I think 7 actually does a little better. Like, props to 7, because there are some moments, but they're kind of hidden, with, like you said with Vincent. They're a little bit hidden because he's an optional character. But
yeah,
I can at least name a bunch of cool scenes that happen outside of first time you meet him.
Yeah, there are those. And 7 is, in general, like a much more cohesive experience, because they took their time with 7, because it had to restart the production so many times. And all that. And I think 8 is probably one of the worst ones in terms of character.
Oh yeah, well that's because everyone's like kind of slapped at the same time and together. There's only like a couple of party members who don't show up at the beginning of the game, like in the first couple of hours. And yeah, and then there's I can't get into the plot without spoilers, but there's like a really doofy twist involving the characters about halfway through that is quite polarizing.
Yeah, let's just say that it's the worst thing. The worst.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's pretty contrived. It's like, this happened and no one realized?
Yeah.
Okay.
We weren't paying attention for 20 years.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, we're going into general Square Enix talk now, but like, if we go back to Bravely Default, can we talk about how absolutely gobsmackingly beautiful this game is?
Okay, sure. Let's jump into presentation a little bit, because yes, it is, with some caveats that I'll get to, it's really lovely looking. I've seen people talk online about how this comes out, like this is supposedly like a budget game. I'm not seeing that. I don't know what people are talking about. This looks, maybe my standards for JRPGs are just that low, but this is a really well done game.
Yeah, like, okay, the character models in the combat scenes and the whole animations there aren't exactly the most sophisticated, because they are trying to emulate the old stuff.
Yeah.
But like anything in the world map and anything in the cities, the pastel-colored environments and all that are just really, really gorgeous to look at.
Well, with the cities, they're going for that pre-rendered background look of the PlayStation era games that I, again, am a giant sucker for. They're not pre-rendered, but they like manage to get it to look like that.
Yeah.
The illusion is there, and yeah, that's an absolute treat.
Yeah, they are something that I really love. And there's the thing that Square Enix, I think, at their best, does really well, which is that the architecture is always interesting to look at. It's fun to just stop what you're doing and just explore, like with your eyes, go through the city to see, you know, how it makes sense, how it's put together. And I think those are some of the best parts of it. And the music is really great.
Oh yeah, absolutely freaking. That's what they called out in the production back when they were promoting this game, is because the first game's soundtrack, also like one of the best soundtracks ever, was by this guy Revo. He is originally a doujinshi musician, but he's gotten bigger roles. His most famous, I believe, he's done a bunch of the theme songs for Attack on Titan, including the iconic first one, the "Sidequests, nein, wir sind die Jäger,"
which is just absolute slapper of a song.
It is like that. There's a reason that was like a meme for a while. Like I heard that song before I'd even heard about the anime, if we're honest, actually. Like some meme video like just slapped it in my face, and I was like, yo.
Oh yeah, I saw it with the anime, and I remember just like instantly just pausing, going right back, like, what in the hell did I just hear? Let's go again. This is great.
Yeah, that was hardcore. Yeah, so he did the soundtrack for the first Bravely Default. For Bravely Second, he wasn't available, I think. No, he wasn't. Well, no, he wasn't available. I think it was some scheduling thing or something. And basically, when they were making this one, Bravely Default 2, they were all like, "Revo's back! He's gonna make the soundtrack again." And yeah, it freaking works.
Yeah, it's really good. There isn't a single moment where I'm like, this song again.
I want to call out especially the song that plays when you fight like rare monsters or bosses that aren't the asterisk holders, the job guys, because it is like the most Nobuo Uematsu tribute in the game, because Mr. Uematsu loves the Hammond organ. He sticks it in all his music. You hear it so often in his soundtracks. He's an avowed Deep Purple fan who also use the Hammond organ, and like he plays keyboard in his band Black Mages. And this song in the fights is basically an organ dueling with a guitar while the fight is playing out, and that's always sick. I love it when that song comes up.
Yeah. That is absolutely a good one. And in general, I'm glad you mentioned the whole Nobuo Uematsu kind of tribute, because there's a lot of, in general, Square Enix tributes and kind of love letters all over the place in this game, which I find really lovely. Like, they're not overt, but they're like, you can clearly tell that they're all coming from the same school of thought when it comes to putting together these kind of games.
Exactly, yeah. There's sometimes... Yeah, like you said, like they're not cribbing too hard, but there are some like less obvious ones. Like Final Fantasy has an enemy called the Ahriman, which is this flying eyeball monster, and that enemy type shows up super early in this game as well, called Ahriman. That's not like a super like, let us lean on your nostalgia, but it is just like a hey, remember this guy at a moment?
Yeah, and it's nice. It's not overt kind of wallowing in anything. It's more of a thing of, we know you're fans. We know you, that the people who know. And it makes you feel all special and tingly on the inside because you're in a special club.
Yeah, and also the Black Mage class. It's not a Jawa like in Final Fantasies. It's instead it's like a trench coat wearing kind of private investigator looking dude.
Yeah,
but still, so it's going for its own thing, even while it is like winking and nodding hard at its inspirations.
Right.
I do want to call out the presentation. There is one visually one sore spot for me. That's the dungeons. They're step down from kind of the overworld and often they are. There's a couple of ones that are really good looking. The underground waterway in the desert city looks really good. There's an optional area that's like this meadow near the beginning game that looks really good. But a lot of the areas are too plain for me, the dungeons, me personally. They're a little better than the first game. The first game also suffered from a lot of samey looking just corridors running everywhere. They've added a little bit more flair to them, a little bit more variety, but I wish they still went for that pre-rendered PS1 look, even when you are in the like adventuring dungeon areas. That's a personal thing for me, I'll say.
No, I agree. I'm right there with you. I didn't mind them as much because I never have liked dungeons to begin with.
Okay,
they're always like a necessary evil with these kind of games. So I usually just kind of try and focus on getting out of there as fast as possible. But yeah, now that I think about it, they do lack a certain kind of panache compared to the other stuff.
Yeah, well, some of them, like I mentioned, the two I think are nice, but like think about the first haunted. Well, it's not a haunted mansion. The mansion you go at the very beginning of the game. That's like the first area. It's just a bunch of wooden rooms in a square maze, basically. When you like break it down, and there's like floors, but all the floors look the same. So I wish they did more with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's been a problem with this whole genre that for a long, long while, ever since we went HD with video games, so like mid-aughts, I feel like JRPG started to struggle on this front. Like they just couldn't get the environments to be as evocative as they once were. And I think it's gotten better in recent years, but there's still problems like this here.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the way those are put together, the way how difficult and how time-consuming pre-rendered and pre-drawn backgrounds are, and the way that developers want these products out, though, how quickly they want them out.
Yeah.
It is. It's just impossible as a scenario, especially considering this is easily 100-hour game.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen half of what it has to offer in terms of locations and variety. So right. I can't imagine that those people who made the art for this, who had to work on making every area distinctive, it already must have been a colossal project without even the, certain subjects working properly. So I kind of forgive that a lot. Because it's just the realities of game development. But at the same time, yeah, I wish they were a little better.
Yeah, I've heard so many explanations of why pre-rendered isn't viable anymore. The workload and also, scaling for different resolutions ruins the effect, all that stuff. And nowadays, they're starting to get, like 3D areas are starting to get, getting up there in detail. Like that's not being a problem as much anymore. Like, I remember someone posting like pictures from Uncharted 4 that are just like, rooms from Nathan Drake's house that look incredible and are so detail rich. But that's the one thing I just can't shake from my like nostalgia pining is when I look at a 20-year-old game and I think about how very specific games back then looked, and like that just can't seem to be replicated as much. The closest is the cities in this game somehow tap into that for me. So it's just me being a gripey person, but yeah, it is. I still can't like not call it out.
Oh, right. Yeah, I agree. But like in terms of Naughty Dog and Uncharted, and you're right, Uncharted looks amazing. The art direction in that game series is, well, it's only, matched and surpassed by the other Naughty Dog games, which is Last of Us.
Right.
But I think as we established before, Naughty Dog makes their games the same way that Russians built anything or the pyramids were built, which is throwing human misery at it until it's taken shape.
You're not wrong about that. I'm super glad you called that out because, I'm being a little unreasonable in my demands, of course.
Right. And like, I think I would rather have I mean, of course, Japanese work culture is its own bucket that we're not going to look into right now because
it's fresh hell.
Yeah. So they are already crunching and working like crazy. I can't imagine going and saying that, hey, I demand more. This cake you've made is already great, but where's the cherry? Where's the cherry on top?
Right on. But it still works. I guess we can still.
Oh yeah, I mean, minor quibbles aside, this is a beautiful game. Even if you're like me and you're playing it on a big screen television, like I played it on my Switch was docked, and I played it on our 65-inch 4K TV. I had no complaints with how it looked for 99% of the time.
Nice. Mine is, of course, I only have a Switch Lite, but still worked super fine on the little screen. capture that 3DS vibe of the original one.
Yeah, and I also like played it with me while I was, doing the minute amount of commuting that we can do currently.
Right.
While we go into the second year of lockdown.
Oh no. But yeah, it's fine. But maybe I could call out one more thing that I can quibble about. This one goes back to gameplay.
Yeah.
This one actually is a modern thing that they've added in this game that I think actually is a little detrimental. I'm not engaged. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm half engaged by the side quests, and I'm half just bored by them. There are side quests in this game that are just like tasks that the little townspeople will give you to do, and a lot of them are the worst kind of go collect 5 monster tooths kind of things that are, MMO basic quests. And those aren't very interesting. The problem on top of this, because it sounds like something that you could just be like, well, don't do them, is that there are also pretty engaging side quests that like add characterization to your party members and everything. Cutscenes, boss fights, optional areas, like a lot of good stuff. Those are impossible to tell from the more basic vendor fetch quests because they all have the same blue symbol, and it's a little frustrating because I'd like to do those. I feel obligated to do them all, but half of the time I'm just like, okay, gotta run off to those ruins and run and kill some random monster and then come back, and there we go. Now I got my XP and money.
Yeah, I don't like side quests to begin with. I think most of the time side quests are just... how do I put this? Because I have done content writing for games. I know how thankless of a task and thankless of a job it is. Right. And nobody goes there to make bad side quests, but you just have...
Yeah, I guess once again, I'm being a little unreasonable with my requests here. But
no, I mean, it's good to criticize because they are something that they're put in because the people who publish these, the suits and the higher ups, they feel that it needs to be put in to add value. That more content means more value. But I've always found that they are really tedious, and a lot of the time, it is like you mentioned, it's a needle in a haystack. That when you do find a good one, then it's a really good side quest. But I can't think of any modern or even older game, but especially modern games. I can't think of any one that I would have had more good side quests than bad.
Not even Witcher 3?
Even Witcher, if we're talking about side quests, like Witcher 3, like the main plot itself branches into a number of smaller side quests, and most of them are really engaging because they have to deal with the main story. But then when you go like, if you really just go into town and you start picking up the side quests that they have on the boards there, they are really dull. Because they're meant to be there just for time filler. So it's like, go to place A, kill number X of monster B, and then head back for your reward. Or like, go find this guy and escort him home. Go find 16 bushels of apples.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff like that, which is easy to make and adds, anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour of content. But then every once in a while you do, like you mentioned, you get some really great side quests. Like there's one, especially Witcher 3, where you have to, it starts off with, you have to go to this town and win the boxing championship because it's a boxing minigame. So go do it. And then that turns into a thing of, hey, you could be the boxing champion of this part of the world. So if you go to these other villages and, you engage with their traditional boxing thing, because every village has their own different kind of tradition for the boxing. So, you go there and it's like, oh, this one village is undefeated. And then you have to go and fight their champion. I'm not going to spoil what that champion or how that fight goes, but it is such a nice subversion of the cliche that alone made the side quest, which would have been otherwise tedious, worth it.
Right.
So, like, side quest side note.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm a little more amenable to them than you are, because I do like the idea of there being, like, things outside of the main main thread of plot to provide some kind of world building, like there's an opportunity to show a little bit of how the world outside of the main thing works. And I think the actually content-rich side quests in Bravely Default 2 do provide that, and they also add to those fun side characters I mentioned. I love that in this game, the bad guys don't all die immediately, which means that they become recurring characters, and even their characters are like built on. But they're buried inside, again, no shade to the developers, but I don't find them engaging when it's just run over and kill a monster, or run over and find a hidden item and then run back to the NPC. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was a little bit of quibbling at the end there, but I have to say I'm over the moon about this game. This is exactly the kind of old school game I like. It's funny, As a kid, I was kind of intimidated by this kind of job system, because I felt like, am I smart enough to work out how to play it? And I don't think I'm still smart enough, but I'm at least like little leaps and bounds. I'm inching forwards against the challenges, and I find it really rewarding. So I'm all for this game.
I'm not as excited as you are about it. I really have enjoyed my time with it. I don't know if I will go and finish it, because I did notice that I have at least another 40 hours to go.
Yeah, it is also quite a, a commitment, just like old games of this ilk are.
Right, but I do like the characters so much that I do believe I will return to them simply because they are interesting and fun characters.
You know what is a weird idea, like this weird notion I got that I think you could say about a lot of games like these, but for this one specifically, I felt like this would be an excellent animated series.
Yeah.
There's a really strong core cast and really good supporting characters and recurring characters. There's like a simple plot arc with like really good chapters to it. I don't know why, but I would love to see Bravely Default 2, the animated series.
I think it would work pretty well with that, yeah.
And also Square Enix, that'd be a lot of sellable merchandise with all of those job class figures. Wink, wink.
Yeah, no, it would.
I'd just have a shelf full of Elvises at home if that happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get them out, say, before next summer in a year or so, then that would be great. Because that's when I'll be visiting Japan, so, please.
Just think about it, guys.
Yeah. I mean, because it's not like I'm going to be spending all my money already on ridiculous figurines that you can't get from anywhere else while I'm going there.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sure your budget will still have room for hold on, I think there's at least 20 classes in this game.
I'll just add an extra 0 into that budget then.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yes, that's good. But yeah, other than that, I did enjoy it. I think my only quibbles are because I really want the gaming industry and gaming in general to move forward, and I'm a little tired of everything looking backward. It's not a bad thing in this case, because this does nostalgia right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just a personal kind of thing that I think I'm personally done with looking back, and I am going to be looking more at what things can be done differently.
No, I totally get that, and I feel like I do want to support that more generally, but they got me exactly in my wheelhouse here, so I can't help but be happy that,
Oh yeah, and I am just happy that if anybody gets pure joy out of this, I'm really thrilled, because that's always a great thing to see when somebody gets exactly the kind of game they're looking for.
Yeah, so if you're an old fogey or retro 16-bit enthusiast and you haven't gotten this game yet, I think it would be a very wise choice for you. I guess if you're not quite in that scene, it's worth a look, you'd say?
I'd say maybe when it comes on sale, I wouldn't pay full price for it if you're just curious, without any kind of experience on these otherwise.
That makes sense, especially with no experience, how hard it'll probably kick your ass once you get to chapter 1.
Yeah, and I've bitched about it before, but like it has to be said, it takes about 5 to 10 hours for it to get good. The beginning is slow. The tutorial lasts very long, as it usually does in these kind of JRPGs. But once it does open up, and once it starts opening up even more after that, it does become a lot more enjoyable. And it's a tough sell, because arguably, yes, a game should be interesting and fun from the very beginning.
Right.
But with something like this, which is a long game, which has a lot of content, be prepared that the opening will take some time to find its footing.
Of course, if you love fun accents, you'll be in on it right away, honestly.
Oh, that's true. Elvis does save a lot.
And there's a lot of fun. Hold on, I gotta read this one quote I wrote down from the character Sir Sloan, because I loved the diction they provided. The old caretaker of Princess Gloria, he was talking to, he was talking to Seth about, I think, like, pre-fight jitters or something, and he's just like, "'Twere better that thou wert calm. Vexation doth dull the sword arm, after all." And it's like, wow! Freaking Shakespeare School of Acting right there. Amazing.
Yeah, there's no scenery left from all that scenery chewing.
It's a thing of beauty. But yeah, that's the kind of package it is, so make of that what you will, and I hope you enjoy it if you do try it. Righto, that was our episode today. Another excellent discussion we had. Well, we already teased what we're going to be talking about next time. It'll happen sometime in April, the episode about Disco Elysium, I'm sure. But let's plug whatever else we've got going on. Have you got anything to plug about future projects?
Well, I have the Outriders review coming out. If you haven't gone and either, laughed or gotten angry about my Justice League review, that is up right now as well, because that's what everybody's talking about at the moment.
Oh, yes, of course. Do check it out. You didn't mince words.
No, I am not a Snyder fan. Other than that, it is very quiet right now. I have a review in Finnish coming out for Konsolifin about the new Harvest Moon game. And I can tease you about that the headline for that is that Harvest Moon One World taught me how to hate again. So
that is an interesting take.
Yes, so that is certainly something. If you're a fan of Harvest Moon, or if you were a fan before they had their big acrimonious split, do go look at it, because I was very much not a fan of this new Harvest Moon where Natsume's taking it.
Yeah, I guess if you're a fan of, I forget what the other, Story of Seasons. If you're a fan of Story of Seasons, especially have a look at this one, I guess, is the takeaway.
Yes, I was an angry man while writing that.
Fair enough.
How about you? What are you up to?
Well, now we can finally call out our joint project. Halo is coming out. That's right, me and Jonathan sat down to play the original Halo in anticipation of Halo Infinite, and also to commemorate the 20th anniversary of this classic first-person shooter, and the episodes are coming out on my channel, Minsk and Friends. They're on Fridays and Saturdays, and they are super good. Please go watch them.
There is a lot of silliness there.
Oh boy, does it go places. And also a lot of bantering about stuff that's not the game, but I think people watching Let's Plays are already used to that, so... Yeah, more of that for sure.
and it's really not our fault. It's the fault of that damn library.
Oh boy, yeah. I wonder if that episode will be out by now when this podcast comes out. But I'm certainly interested to see what the reaction to that's going to be. Because our was acrimonious, I think was the word you used earlier.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Apart from that, same ones are still my favorites, Atelier Arona and Phoenix Wright. I think they're delightful. I hope you guys enjoy them as well. And something else surely in the future later on.
I'm sure we can figure out some kind of shenanigans.
It should. Like, we have a combined brain power of 2 average persons.
Yeah, that long pause really sold it there.
Yep, we got this. Don't worry, people. But for now, we are going to call it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and we will catch you again in the future. Bye-bye!
See ya!